Yeah, I was like, let's not tell Scott and Mike on the official face of Atlassian because I'm pretty sure they'd have a different opinion about that. I think I can like use Jira to help push this team forward and work on these deliveries. And so I just molded Jira to my liking, to what I needed. And I ended up pretty much like knocking that out of the park, and it was cool. And I'm like, wow, this is really powerful. Jira is really good at project management stuff. Agile, in my opinion, is one of the fundamental reasons why people use Jira.
Hmm.
Right? Because you're doing your sprints, you're doing your story points, you got your estimations, right? It works really, really well. Atlassian is going away from that.
This is an absolute honor to have pretty much the face of Jira and Atlassian on the podcast with me today. I've been watching Alex for some time, and I've seen a lot of his videos for a few years now, and it's really great to have you on, Alex. Thank you so much for making the time.
Thanks for having me. I don't know about the base of Atlassian, but I do like to tell people from time to time that I'm the unofficial face of Atlassian.
I would say at least unofficial, but almost official in a way.
My goal was any Jira question you have, my face pops up. I don't know if I've gotten there yet, but that's the goal at least.
Yeah, that was the case for me when I was researching Jira things. So I would say
Yeah.
pretty much achieved. I'd love to hear how your journey in Atlassian started. What prompted you to started creating these videos, releasing them on YouTube. I've seen you on other platforms as well, but I've primarily seen you on YouTube, and kind of what got you into the space in general.
Yeah, so I started with Atlassian in 2016. I got a job. I was living in the Midwest, and I was gonna have a baby. Well, my wife was gonna have a baby, and we just we knew we wanted to come back home. We knew we wanted to be back in California, really in Missouri, and raising a new child was not something I wanted to do. And so, as luck would have it, there was a company that set up shop at a bar across the street from where I worked, and they gave jobs out literally for free. And one of them was to come to Southern California, so that was my ticket home. And they were interested in me because at the company I was at in Missouri, I was doing like DevOps tools. I had a lot of extensive background in managing Team Foundation Server, which is basically Microsoft's version of Jira.
Hmm.
And I was also working on like version one and a bunch of stuff in that space. So they were interested, and they shipped me on over to San Diego, California. And the first day on the job was, here's Jira. And I hated it at first, but I learned to love it.
Was that like
From
an
there,
on-prem version, or was that already in the
yeah,
cloud?
yeah, it was a server version of Jira. I just didn't like it because you had to change applications.
Hmm.
Like TFS or Team Foundation Server, everything's in your Visual Studio. So as you're coding, your repositories in there. As you're coding, your tickets are in there. As you're coding, your build and your test and everything is in that UI. And I was like, why in the world do I have to go to like Bitbucket? And then why do I have to go to Bamboo? And then why do I have to go to Fisheye like, and Crucible? I'm like, why do I have to do all these things to achieve the one thing I can do with just one tool? And so I tried it for months, and then eventually it became my career.
Hmm.
Now, getting into content, I did the Jira thing since 2016, and at one point I switched from being an admin to being a user, and I was a program manager for a company, or for a team, and I ended up understanding how Jira worked fundamentally because of all the years that I had been doing the administrative side of the house, and I was like, you know what, I think I can like use Jira to help push this team forward and work on these deliveries. And so I just molded Jira to my liking, to what I needed, and I ended up pretty much like knocking that out of the park, and it was cool. And I'm like, wow, this is really powerful. Jira is really good at project management stuff. Because I never used it as a project manager when I was the admin, right? I
Hmm.
just had the tools, but even since 2013 that I started using like Agile based tools, it was literally the IT side of the house, never as a project manager, right? And so I learned the power of that, and And I went forward and used it as a program manager, project manager. Did it for a couple different teams, and then COVID hit, and I went home. And then I don't know. I just decided everybody was getting laid off. Everybody was. It was a very weird time, and I wanted to do a YouTube channel since 2014. And so here we are in like 2021 at this point. And I figured, what better opportunity to put a gap in my resume when the whole world has a gap in their resume, right? And so
Hmm.
I quit everything and I decided to jump into YouTube and start a YouTube channel that I wanted. And so here we are now.
No, that's pretty cool. So you kind of got thrown into Jira when you started your new job out of nowhere. What resources did you end up using to learn and understand the tool? Because there was probably not much out there at the time.
There wasn't a whole lot out there, but I do take extreme pride. I have a binder about this thick still.
Oh, wow.
When you can see the thickness of it.
Mhm.
I wish I would have brought it. But yeah, it's basically the original OG PDFs of how to use Jira, whatever program
Wow.
I was on in Confluence, right? And just reading through that entire, like, it's like this big. Yeah, just read through all the documentation. Just
You
there
read the whole
wasn't a
thing
lot
cover
there,
to cover.
cover to cover. Like literally, that's
Wow.
all you had at the time, right? It was just Atlassian's documents, and
Hmm.
that was it. Like there's trial and error in the document.
So if you had a question and someone comes up and says, "Hey, Alex, can we do this in Jira?" You'd flip through the binder, you'd look through it, you'd see if it's
Pretty much.
possible.
Yeah,
That's
that
wow,
or
it's a very
find like
different time.
it was a very painful way to learn.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure it wasn't the most efficient way, but I guess if it works, it works, right?
Yeah. No, and then there's also the added element that old OG Jira admins, right? There's a lot of system administration to it, right? Which you
Hmm.
just don't even have in the cloud today. So I
Right.
already had that knowledge, I already had that skill. It was just the Jira element of it that I just didn't know.
Hmm. Yeah, that's great. And I'm sure you've seen a lot of really creative and useful ways in your years of working with Jira that companies have utilized it, teams have utilized it. What's one of the most creative things that you've seen done in Jira?
Well, I've made Jira do a lot of things. I like to take pride in telling people that I take your English business requirements and turn them into Jira speak, right?
Hmm.
And so some of the cool things that I've done is I've built like an entire like financial tracking system in Jira. So companies that want like a full portfolio project management solution where they track like end to end. Here's a project that we funded. How much money are we spending on that project? What are all the stories, the stats, and everything? So a lot of arithmetic to find like the different expenses that a company has, right? Where it's like licensing or labor and stuff like that. They're just building an entire system that would roll up numbers and do all this arithmetic with like numerical data. And that was super interesting to me because it's not a use case that you normally have in Europe, but
Hmm.
automation rules are so powerful, right? You can do a lot of arithmetic with automation
Hmm.
rules. And so that's probably one of my more unique cases that I've actually presented to Anu, and I showed it to her one time.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
So it's kind of cool.
Yeah, that's something I actually just started jumping into recently. I've started to utilize the automation and some of the math that they've built into that to do some calculations. And I didn't realize how powerful it was till I came across the use case and kind of had to build something similar out. And my instinct was like to go to ScriptRunner or some other third party tool to do it. But once I started jumping into the automation and doing the calculations there, I was like, wow, this is actually really cool and very powerful.
Yeah, I'm not a huge programmer. There's a reason why. So my background's programming, but I got out of
Mhm.
that world, and so whenever I can avoid something like script runner, I avoid like the plague. And whenever I can do it with automation rules, like the coding required for automation rules is like right where my level of comfort is.
Mhm. So I, as someone who is a Jira admin, might go online and research something about Jira that I don't know, and I might come across one of your videos. How do you research and stay up to date and learn about new Atlassian trends and Jira updates yourself?
So there's a couple of different techniques. I like to tell people I don't have a shortage of video ideas. I would argue I have like a 500-600 video catalog backlog right
Wow. Do you have that written down anywhere, or is that just kind of in your head?
now.
Is there
I
another
did
binder somewhere?
not come prepared for this show, but yes, I have a binder. Well, I'm a big writer. I love writing
Hmm.
things down. I gotta. They eventually do make it into Jira, but there's something about just writing things on paper that I get
Hmm.
extreme satisfaction out of. So I have all my ideas written down first, and then they get eventually refined enough to where they make it into Jira and a backlog. But when I first started, when I first started making like my first 100 videos, the inspiration there was I just started in the corner of the Jira UI and went from there, right? So I worked my
Hmm.
way down the issues. You start with the issue type schemes, right?
Yep.
Subtasks, and I just worked my way down because that's kind of how I love starting in corners. Like even like house projects, like my wife's like, she'll be like, "Hey, this is broken or that's broken." I'm like, I can't go there. I need to start in the corner of this house. I need to start in this corner of this property and work my way around the problems. I'll get to them eventually, but I need a corner to start. And so I just started in the corner of yeah, just from an admin side, like issues and what's an issue type? How do you add issues, right? And then from the user side, I started with like, what's a Jira project and what's a story, what's a task, what's a bug, like when do you use them, when is it appropriate to use a story versus a bug or something like that, right? So that's kind of where I started, where I just I wanted to, if you look at those early videos, there's a very linear progression to advancement of, okay, we just
Hmm.
did stories, the next video was on bugs, the next video was like on epics, the next video was like on how to make initiatives. So it's very linear in forms of, I just wanted to be as comprehensive as possible with all the buttons that are in Jira. I just picked the button
Hmm.
one by one and went down the list.
What about more recent updates? So with like new features that Atlassian might roll out, new updates in Jira,
So,
how do you stay up to date with those?
so with those, I do rely a lot on the emails that go out from Atlassian. So if you look at my newer videos today, I am I'm caught between a rock and a hard place right now. So like I mentioned, right, there's no shortage of video ideas, and so right now I do it easy, right? Right now my videos are, hey, Atlassian sends out their monthly recap videos. So like, here's what's new in Jira, here's what's new in Confluence for the month of June or month of July, right? And I cherry pick the things that I find interesting,
Hmm.
and then I make like a 5 minute video on that.
Okay.
I would say I'm a lot lazier right now, but I'm lazy with intention. The reason I'm lazy is because as of right now, and as of since April, what was it? When was Teams April 30th?
Hmm.
Right, May 1st, whenever that time frame was. Since that day, Atlassian has put me in between in this really interesting pickle where I don't want to make any new videos that are instructional in nature while we wait for Atlassian to update the UI.
Oh
So
yeah,
that
that's very
whole
true.
UI, that whole UI is going to be updated, and
Hmm.
so I don't want to make a click here, click there, click over here when it's going to change, right?
Hmm.
Now, Anu said the next 2 to 3 months, we're going to be rolling this out. It's been 3 months. So I am at the point of not holding my breath anymore. And so I might have to just bite the bullet and start making videos.
Hmm.
But right now I just highlight the new features because those are less likely to change as they're new features. So right now my videos have been either interviews or new features, new capabilities. But my goal is to go back to square one and start over because so much has
Hmm.
changed in the last 3 years that I just want to redo everything.
Yeah, that actually makes a lot of sense. In terms of the new UI, I know that there is a plugin for Chrome that they've created to kind of give you that new experience, and I've tried it out here and there. It's very buggy at the moment, but I'm curious what your thoughts are and if you've tried the new UI
I
and
haven't tried
if you
it, but
like it
for
or
that,
not.
I haven't tried it, but for that exact same reason, right? Like I've heard, right? So
Hmm.
you're like the third person that's told me something very similar, where it's not representative of the real thing, man. So again, these videos, YouTube's forever,
Yep.
and I just don't want to make a video with it either being buggy or things not working, because like a great example of a video that I hate that I made, but everybody appreciated because of its like truthfulness was the Google Sheets integration with like Jira,
Hmm.
right? So you can do that two-way sync between like Google Sheets and Jira, but boy is it buggy.
Hmm.
Like, the free one, right? The one made by
Yep.
Atlassian, like boy is that buggier than bugs. It's like it's got more bugs than anything else. And I was like, guys, like here's how it works. but expect it to not to work when you need it to work because it just doesn't work, right? And it's like that kind of video is like I didn't want to make it because I'm like this thing sucks, but it sucks for everybody. But I don't
Yep.
want to because I know that the UI is going to be updated for everybody. Fingers crossed it's going to work. I don't want to do like buggy videos
Hmm.
yet.
Yeah. What do you think about the UI change? Do you like the direction they're going in, or do you like the old UI better from what you've seen so far?
The more I look at it, the more I guess it's I'm I'm undecided, I guess is the right word, right? I don't like when they change the UI. Um, I've developed muscle memory. I don't know if I'm a power
Hmm.
user. I don't know if it's because I'm a power user. I don't know if something's just wrong with me. But you do this. You click in Jira thousands and thousands and thousands of times a day, right? And then us as admins probably more than other people, right? And when you move a button, right, just one button. I don't know if we talked about it when we chatted on my video, right? But was it March? The little gear in the top right corner for user management. User
Yep.
management used to be the very first thing on there.
Hmm.
And then they moved it all the way to the bottom. And so muscle memory, I went straight in and it was taking me to like my profile. I'm like, what in the world is going on? And like you just can't move buttons in the UI and expect there to not be a revolution.
Yeah, that's very true.
And so now that they're gonna but I can see what they're doing, right? The new UI is basically I will say Jira 2020 mixed with Jira work management. Right?
Hmm.
All they did was take all the horizontal stuff, made it vertical, and all the vertical stuff made it horizontal. But again, when you use Jira as much as we do, I think it's going to be more painful because you're going to natively go to that bottom corner for your project settings. But surprise, they're up in the top right corner now.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. I feel like they're almost heading towards like the Asana style of UI rather than the Jira style. Jira was like very clear and defined in the way it was set up. But now I feel like they're moving towards more of a streamlined, like typical project management suite of tools UI.
I I think so too, and that's why I made a video called like Atlassian killed Agile, right? Because I think they're gonna deep focus
Hmm.
the emphasis of Agile of what makes Jira Agile and just make it say, hey, we just track work. Whatever that work is, we do it.
Hmm.
And so I can appreciate that, right? Obviously, they want more market share, they want more customers, and they've probably saturated the entire Agile market at this point. I don't know what team out there is an Agile based team not using Jira,
Right.
right? And so now they're just trying to appeal, like, I would assume to like lawyers and
Hmm.
HR departments, right? Like all these other, which is great business for you and me in the business that we're
Hmm.
in. But I would say for the true fan of Jira, I think this change is going to be very interesting.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes. I'm very excited to have it roll out and not have a buggy version of it to play around with, but hopefully that comes sooner rather than later.
What I also suspect is Atlassian's trying to do kind of what Elon does a little bit, right? And they're I don't know if you saw it or I don't know if it's in the Chrome version, but search is like the biggest thing now, right? Like they
Hmm.
that real estate that search got at the top of that bar is like they really just want you to use AI at this
Right.
point, right?
Yeah, yeah. I've been using the command palette a lot, and that's been pretty handy in terms of like more of an administration approach. But I could definitely see it being very helpful with like the end users just being able to search, find their task, search, find their project, find the settings that they need. I think it's helpful as long as it's done right.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm gonna wait and see. Again, I don't need to. Luckily for me, I don't use Jira as a user today, right? Where I have to depend on
Hmm.
knowing where everything's at from just a business efficiency, but training and tutoring and knowing what all the buttons do and where they're at and why they do what they do. Like that's I just saw. I just remember being at Teams this year and going, "Dang it, we're all back to square one." Because you got to essentially relearn Jira at some point.
Right. Yeah. This one's a big change, and I think this is maybe one of the biggest UI changes to Jira since its creation. And I'm curious what other outside of this UI change, what other changes that you've seen in Jira that you may have liked, may have not liked, but maybe some of the biggest things that have changed over time ever since you've kind of gotten into the Atlassian world.
I think pricing's a big one. Um,
Hmm.
it just gets more and more expensive every day, right?
Right.
I think that's a it's an interesting problem. Obviously, Atlassian, I feel like over the last few years, they're really nickel and diming us, right?
Hmm.
And automation rules, they have a usage limit, right? That that to me was a really weird decision. Like, I get that they want to make money, but the way that they're charging or the way that they implemented it, I think is a face palm in my opinion, right?
Hmm.
Because businesses depend on these automation rules,
Right.
right? And for you to just halt them, not even give you the option to pay for more, right? Like, that's so dumb because now everybody that gets to the end of the month, all of those automation rules are just stuck. And
Hmm.
so you're almost unincentivized to use automation rules because it's going to cause a bigger headache for you. So that's
Right.
been a problem, right? And just the pricing of Jira just in general, right? It goes up every single year. The fact that there's no
Hmm.
view like only license, I think is one of the biggest pain points of Jira
Yes. Yes.
as
That's
well.
huge. Hmm.
Like, almost every competitor of Jira does have some sort of a view only, read only license that's free. So I think that's a big miss on Atlassian's behalf there. What else did they do recently that they started changing the prices for? Like
I.
Atlassian Guard and all that. Like, it
Mhm.
all just gets more expensive, right?
I think the work management and software combination, I think that's going to make them a lot of money. So technically it's the same price, but the people on work management previously now have to pay, what is it, two or three
Double.
times more
Yeah,
than
double as much.
before.
Yeah.
Whereas previously they had a very budget friendly product essentially.
I'm glad you said that because I've said this a lot to other people, and they're like, "No, you got to think that not that many people were on work management by itself." I mean, it doesn't matter. Like, the principle was work management was like $5 and $10, and
Yep.
now it's minimum 16 and 20 or whatever it's going to be, right? So they
Hmm.
they doubled the price, even though mostly everybody was already. I would assume mostly everybody was already using Jira software and they're already paying a lot.
Hmm.
But it's just the principle.
Yeah, yeah, it is. And even if there was a team that was maybe not exclusively using Jira Work Management, there were a lot of teams that I've worked with that have their Jira Service Management licenses, their Jira software licenses, and then there's separately their Jira Work Management licenses. And that was a way for them to kind of cut costs for like maybe their marketing team or their project management teams. Everything could be done in Jira for relatively an affordable price.
Yeah.
Now they have to bump up to that Jira software pricing, and a lot of them are on premium, so they're sometimes paying four times as much as they did before, which is kind of crazy.
Well, not only that, but now that you mentioned premium, right? Like, free and standard versions of Jira Cloud are like becoming less relevant,
Hmm.
right? If you want to do anything good, anything worthwhile, you got to be on premium minimum,
Yep. Very
right? And
true.
I think that's again another. Atlassian started off with these, and I get it. It's a Fortune 500. You got a
Yep.
business shareholder to please, but it's challenging when you start off with for $10 you have perpetual licenses
Hmm.
forever, to killing that off completely, to now every year in October expecting that 10% increase, to now having to pay for your automation rules, having to pay for your SSO. The fact that you have to pay extra for security, for cybersecurity, I mean, to me, it blows my mind.
Yeah.
Right? Like, that should be built into the product for free. Like, this is crazy. Um, the what else is gonna? Oh, the 10 free users, right? A lot of
Hmm.
the vendors. I think another part that's broken my heart a lot is Jira was great to stand up for free. You get almost. I used to say at the beginning, if you go back and look at my videos from 3 years ago, right? Like, the free
Hmm.
version gets to like 90% of the capability,
Right.
and you can get almost all the plugins for free too. And that's not the case anymore, right? The free
Yeah.
version gets, I would say, 50-60% of the capabilities, and
Hmm.
now you got to pay for every plugin. Like,
Yeah.
almost everybody's getting rid of their free for 10 and under.
My team at grid.io, we have four people using Jira and Confluence. We have to be on premium because we need a plans view. We need some other benefits of Jira Premium. Same with Confluence. We're like in between the gap of we want to be on standard because of the pricing, but the premium just has a few features that we need. So we pay $100 for 4 people. That's just crazy. So if you have a team of like 10, you're paying hundreds of dollars for a piece of software that pretty
Needs
much
to be,
does your project management. And
and it needs
that's
to be free.
yeah, it's a crazy price. And that a lot of the apps that that been using, I've noticed that they are kind of ditching that 10 free licenses and going to that paid version, minimum 10,
The
$15.
custom structure Jira is the one that did it for me, man. I used to love custom structure Jira. I had
Mm-hmm.
it. I would show it off to everybody
Yep.
that every video had it in there. Any of my videos now because I'm not gonna pay for it, right? So
Yeah, that's one of the most common charting plugins that I use myself, and yeah, I noticed that too. But most of the teams I end up working with are enterprise, so they can usually afford it. But either way, for smaller teams, it is kind of a bummer that you're getting pushed out of Jira and the Atlassian suite, and you kind of have to search for an alternative just because it's so pricey to get into at such a small scale.
yeah, no, I joke around that Scott is secretly retiring so he can go make like a server version of Jira. We're just gonna. I feel like we're gonna go full circle because there's gotta be a tipping point, right? There's gotta be a point
Hmm.
where cloud is gonna be too expensive
Right.
because you can't control those costs. Like that is ridiculous. Like every cloud service provider you buy is just, hey, once a year, here's an extra 10% just because we gave you all these features. Well, then
Hmm.
don't give me all the features.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. And I think I've seen a lot of this like more self-hosted in like the self-hosted world. There's a lot of things that are coming up that are alternatives to the mainstream apps that you can just host on your own server. It's pretty much free. You just kind of pay for the infrastructure that you have in your own home. And I've seen that, expanding over the years more and more just because of SaaS software paying for licenses that, or features that you don't want. Just much, much cheaper, more budget friendly setups and configurations. And I've seen a lot of these new softwares come out, new open source software is being released. Even bigger companies that have a really enterprise product, they might release an open source self-hosted product just for you to kind of get your feet wet. So I wouldn't be surprised if Jira or Atlassian come up with a solution like
I
that.
am building a coalition of the new Jira. And I got a bunch of people that are actually considering joining. Maybe like a
Sign me
membership.
up. If there was a self-hosted version of Jira with all the features in cloud now, I would be so for that, and that would be really cool for smaller teams for sure.
I'm thinking that I can't predict the future, right? But my opinion, right? And I've said this in a couple of other videos, but I don't know how many people listen, right? But Agile, in my opinion, is one of the fundamental reasons why people use Jira,
Hmm.
right? Because you're doing your sprints, you're doing your story points, you got your estimations, right? It works really, really well. Atlassian is going away from that,
Right.
right? It's going to be work. Whatever that work is, we track it, right? And again, from a market share perspective, there's a whole blue ocean for them of potential new customers that are like, ooh, this works. Because epics and stories turn people away, right? It's
Hmm.
overly complex for a bunch of people. But I would predict the future where Jira and the direction that they're going is going to be basically no more walled garden of safety of like, here's a framework of methodology, Agile, Scrum, specifically Scrum, and you can be very creative as long as you're within the box of Scrum.
Hmm.
But they're going to eliminate that. So now the world's your oyster, and the art of the possible is overwhelming. And I think people are just going to create pure chaos with Jira. Because when you can do anything with it,
Hmm.
like, you will be able to do anything with it, right? And this is why I hate Monday.com. Because it's got no rules. It's got no safeties of like, as long as you stay within the world of Scrum, you're good, right? And that's why I just don't even touch Monday, or that's why I don't touch Trello. That's why I don't touch any of these other products that just don't have a, a best practice way of doing it. Because every way
Right.
is a practice, right? And I just
Yeah. Yeah,
don't
that
resonate.
definitely creates some problems for sure. I think some people like it, some people don't. But the more availability you have, the more openness you have, the harder it is to create and define standards to have an approach for your team.
Yeah, which it's from a business and enterprise perspective, I'd be freaking out right now, right?
Hmm.
Because everybody went through this digital transformation phase where you try to get your teams to operate in a similar operating model. And now you're telling me I got a tool that can let my teams do whatever the heck they want, however they want, whenever they want, wherever they want. I'm like, you're gonna
Do
have.
you think that's where like the industry is heading, not just Atlassian? Because with tools like Notion, with tools like Monday, like you mentioned, those are all unwalled tools, essentially, uncharted territory. And those are very popular these days.
I think so, right? And again, maybe it's just the millennial in me or something. I don't know. But I feel like until we find a better way of doing business, I don't think that unwalled, as we're terming it, methods work for companies. Because
Mhm.
I used to work in the defense industry, right? These companies were very, very structured, very, very organized. You had a rank, you had an order, there was rules in place to conduct business. And business operated, it sucked. You couldn't innovate, right? And I think
Mhm.
that's too extreme. And so I quit that life and I went to a small robotic startup with 300 people. Everybody had PhDs. There were no rules, zero rules, right? And the chaos that I suffered through for a year of, because when you have like these super alpha people that make decisions and they can make any decision they want and not think about the impact of their decisions on what it's going to do to other people,
Mhm.
it's dangerous, right? Because changes are being overwritten. You're just wasting cycles and calories because somebody has a genius idea and they don't, for a second, think about what the impact is as a team, right? And they make the change and then they just screwed over so many people. And now those people got to refactor all their stuff. And it's just pure chaos when you have no rules. And I
Mhm.
see it from a Jira admin perspective. If you, Atlassian's pushing this, like, we're going to let AI make these templates for us, these team managed projects, right? From an administrative perspective, every project is going to be a snowflake dancer or a snowflake configuration, right? It's going to be so unique. Where do you, how do you manage chaos?
Yeah, yeah, it's definitely a good approach. Yeah, I mean, my thought is I think people in teams want to have one platform where they can do everything, and they don't like having 10 tools to do 10 different things. But at the same time, when you have that, you have more structure in each tool individually versus having, kind of that uncharted, unwalled tool, kind of like Jira is becoming, and where you can do technically anything in, but at least you could get rid of those other apps.
But
So in a way, it's
we see it in other aspects, right? Enter iTunes. iTunes
yeah.
started as a 99-cent download and it would sync to your iPod, right? Then they added
Hmm.
TV shows, then they added music videos, then they added movies, then they added podcasts and ebooks. And what do we have today? A dedicated podcast app, a dedicated Apple Music app, right? You have like
Hmm.
it's like a cyclical thing where we're just I think we're gonna reach a point where everybody needs their own individual apps, then it'll be one app, then we'll go back to and it's just this constant
It just goes back and forth.
yeah, as generations enter the workforce and exit the workforce. I'm mostly
Hmm.
interested in the new generation of workforce, right? Like if I was at last and I'd be like looking at okay, so what are 16-year-olds doing today from a productivity perspective, right? Because these people are gonna have to be using the tools in companies.
Hmm. Yeah, that makes sense.
Like
Well,
2 to 5 years, right?
yeah. Before we close out, I wanted to play a little game. I don't know if you've seen those blind tier list rankings on the recently pop up on like the podcasts, but I wanted to blindly have you rank 5 Atlassian tools. I don't know if you're familiar
Without
with the
knowing what
concept.
5 one is.
Yeah, pretty much.
Punch it.
All right. So first tool, let's go with Trello.
And 5.
5.
The
No
worst
doubt
one.
about that.
Yeah, no hesitation.
I did this with Brittany last time, and hers was number one.
Yeah, no, number 5.
All
I mean,
right.
there's a 6, put it there.
All right. Ops Genie. That's the second one.
I'll go with 4. I hate
4.
Opsgenie.
Okay. Loom.
I can give that 3.
3. Okay. Jira.
1.
And then Confluence. That one's on number 2. So
That was
Jira,
number 2, yeah.
Loom, Loom, Ops Genie, Trello.
Yeah.
It's a good
That would be
list. Good
that
list.
would be my list, yeah. That would be the order of although I will say I haven't used Loom as much as I would like.
Hmm.
but I do see a lot of value in Loom. I see the demo that they showed off at the team conference, right? Being able to have a Loom recording of a bug and being
Hmm.
able to auto create those tickets, those bugs for you. I think with the steps that it took and the steps to reproduce and all that, I think it's going to be revolutionary. But until
Yeah,
that
I'd
happens,
love that functionality to kind of morph its way into more of the project management, because I think that's where Loom is used for primarily. I use it like on a daily basis. I'll record 3 to 4 looms a day minimum, sometimes like 10. And if I could record something and throw that into a ticket in Jira for like someone to handle, that would be really cool. Right now it's just a bug feature, but once they kind of branch that out, I think that would be really cool.
it'd be interesting to be like in a meeting where you have your requirements meeting and you're like just designing stuff and you're like, okay,
Hmm.
here's all the stories in Jira out of this Loom video.
Yeah, that'd be really cool.
That's the
Well,
potential.
thank you so much, Alex, for joining me. It's been great to have you on and to hear your perspective as kind of the face of Jira. So it's been an honor to have you, and thank you so much for
Unofficial.
jumping on.
Unofficial.
Unofficial.
I don't know if I told you this, but I'll just real quickly before we end. Um, I worked at a company where there's two Alex Ortizes,
Hmm.
and our emails were always getting swapped. So I discovered that in the Active Directory, I can go in and change my name. And so I added Global Hawk, which was the program that I worked on. And so my name was now Alex Global Hawk Ortiz. And one time somebody stopped me and was like, "How did you get Global Hawk in there?" And I was like, "Don't you know I'm the unofficial? I'm the face." No, I said, "Don't you know I'm the face of Global Hawk?" And the program manager, the vice president that was in charge of Global Hawk, she was right behind me. She's like, "Excuse me." I'm like, "Is that the joke?"
Oh
So
man.
yeah,
Well, I'm
let's
sure
not tell
Atlassian
that.
won't be too offended if you mention it.
Yeah, I'm like, let's not tell Scott and Mike that I'm the official face of Atlassian because I'm pretty sure they'd have a different opinion about that.
Yeah, that makes sense.
All
All
right,
right,
man.
well,
Thank
thank
you
you
so
so
much.
much, Alex, for jumping on.